Tonight, I am super excited to introduce one of my oldest friends and colleagues, Travis Steffens. Travis is an anthropologist who studies conservation biogeography on primate populations in Madagascar. In addition to his research, Travis is a world traveler with a strong passion for wildlife and conservation. He has a bachelor's and a master's degree in primatology from the University of Calgary, and he's currently a PhD candidate here at the University of Toronto. Travis spent 2 years in Madagascar studying endangered lemur species. He's also the director of Planet Madagascar, which is a conservation, education, and community development project. He is also an explorer in residence with Kensington Tours and leads adventure trips in southern Africa and Madagascar, which is where he's just come back from. Today, Travis is going to be sharing his experience as an anthropologist turned conservationist working in the remote regions of Madagascar. So without further ado, please help me welcome Travis.
Okay, how's that in the back? Yay? Thumbs up? Great. Yay. Good. Thanks, Kim. Thank you very much for that introduction. I was just thinking, wouldn't it be great if I had Kim introduce me every day when I woke up? That'd be lovely. And also, thank you all for showing up in this, what is a frigid Canadian winter, to hear about some warmer climes, so we can sort of warm our hearts thinking about these other places as we go along tonight. Before I go, I also want to thank Anthropology because they gave me this opportunity to talk to you all, and I'm very excited because I get to talk about my favorite stuff. So you've heard a little bit about what I do. I just want to plug a few things. I call myself the Traveling Primate, so you can find me at travelingprimate.com, and you can find me on Twitter right there. But I want to tell you about my 8-year-old self, because that's basically how I got to be here. So when I was 8 years old, I was sitting with my friend Kevin. We were sitting in a tree. This was appropriate at the time. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we were saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? He thought, I want to own a skateboard shop. And I thought, that was pretty cool, because we're spending a lot of money on skateboards and wheels and stuff. This would really save us in the long run. And that was fantastic. It was a good idea. I thought it was great. He now actually owns a pine furniture shop. He makes handmade pine furniture, so it wasn't too far of a stretch for him. When he asked me what I wanted to be, and being 8, I thought, well, clearly I want to be a monkey. Being a monkey would be the coolest thing in the world. He was 8 as well, so he punched me and said, that's stupid, you can't be a monkey. That's impossible. And shattering my mind, I realized he was right. So I decided, and I told him right there and then, fine, I want to study monkeys then. And I was fortunate because I grew up in Calgary, and you wouldn't think that's a place you would be able to study monkeys. But for some strange, odd coincidence, the University of Calgary has a primatology department, or anthropology department, but it has a primatology degree. So I actually got a degree in primatology, and I just fell into it by luck that the city that I grew up in was also the city that had that degree. Okay, so then enough of that. Let's move on to the talk. This is the outline of the talk. This is what I'm going to talk about tonight. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is what I call the marvels of Madagascar portion of the talk. It's basically how I get you excited about Madagascar, how I get you interested in Madagascar. And then I have to bring it down a bit, telling you about the plight of Madagascar. So you see all this amazing stuff, but there's some issues with Madagascar. There's actually a few people in this audience I recognize that have been to Madagascar, so they'll know firsthand what I'm talking about. Then I'll tell you about what I do when I'm there, and then I'll bring it back to some conservation stuff that will liven it up a bit so we can tell you about how we're going to fix those problems we talked about earlier. And that's stuff related to Planet Madagascar and some tourism opportunities that I'm interested in. Okay, so we're here in Toronto, we're freezing cold, and we're about to leave to Madagascar. So to go to Madagascar, we have to fly across the Atlantic, get all the way to Paris, grab ourselves a baguette and some cheese, and then fly across Africa down to just off the southeast coast of Africa, to the 4th largest island in the world. So I actually did this myself at home on Google Earth. You can click on Google Earth and do what I'm doing now. And my supervisor, Dr. Sean Lehman, and I, we were doing what I'm doing now on the screen. We started zooming into the country in different spots, looking for green bits. And we're looking for green bits of forest. And you can see this green here. This is forest, but you're also seeing parts that are kind of separated or chunked off or fragmented. Those are fragments. So later in the talk, this will make more sense. But we were looking around for fragments. And if you noticed when the image was big, there wasn't a lot of green on the map. And it's because of this. It's because of habitat fragmentation. So that's something that will come up later. So keep that in mind. Let's get on to the stuff that makes Madagascar cool and why I love to go there. This is the Marvels of Madagascar part. All right, okay. So Madagascar is full of a lot of curious culture. The Malagasy, what they call the people of Madagascar, are not actually from Africa. People think that they must be because it's only 400 kilometers away. But they're actually Indo-Malaysian in descent. So they actually traveled thousands of kilometers by boat to the island roughly about 2,000 years ago. And then since then, some African populations have moved into the country as well. But they're called Malagasy, and their language is Indo-Malaysian in origin, so it's not related to their languages on Africa. They all speak the same language, but there's 12 different dialects, and depending on how you measure this or define it, there's 18 different tribes. So depending where you are, you might hear people say different words, or say things in different ways, or dress differently. So it's actually there's a ton of diversity in culture when you visit there. People don't fully realize that before they go to Madagascar. So that's something that's really cool. There's lots of pretty plants in Madagascar. This is going to be a theme when I go along in the talk about all the things that Madagascar has that makes it unique. In Madagascar, there's 12,000 different species of plants. To put that in perspective, we only have roughly 5,000 here. And another interesting fact is in Madagascar, 70 to 80% of them are endemic. What that means is that they're only found there, so they're unique to Madagascar. That means 80% of those species, what is that, something like 9,000 species, are only found in Madagascar. You can't go to the next island, you can't go to Africa to see them, they're only found there. So here's some examples of them. We've got some orchids and some beautiful flowers. These are baobabs in the middle. People associate baobabs with Africa, but the original baobabs, the 6 species that exist today, all originally came from Madagascar. I think there's 8 species there. 6 are still in Madagascar, one's in Australia and one's in Africa. They actually all floated from Madagascar at one point and then made ground in those other places. So Madagascar is full of these things, and this one is a unique one. It's a subspecies. It's named after the region of baobab, the region that's in, and it is only 4 left. As you can see in the photos, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Sadly, this photo was taken a few years ago. There's only 3 of them left now. But this is the last 3 of this subspecies left in the world. We can't go anywhere else. You can see my wife Carrie Ann looking up at them, and this is the one place you can see them. And that's something that will come up later in the talk where we hear about all this amazing stuff you can see when you go to Madagascar, but what's happening to it. There's a lot of lovely landscapes in Madagascar. You've got mountains and beaches and rainforests and dry forests and spiny forests and cloud forests. There's savannas, there's lakes, there's rivers, there's all sorts of landscapes. So you can see a few here. This is a beautiful lake that I live near when I do my research, or I used to before I started my new project. Here's some cloud forest that's in the middle of the country, a place where you go find things like indris or shafakas. It's a beautiful, beautiful forest. But there's lots of amazing landscapes in the cities themselves. This is one of the cities in the south. This is just waking up early as everyone is getting up, getting ready for their day. The mist is rising and the smoke's coming from the buildings. It's a beautiful place to visit if you're interested in landscapes, plants, peoples. There's also lots of bizarre bugs. Over 100,000 species of insects and arachnids in Madagascar. So you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is probably full of creepy crawlers. It's probably the most horrible place to go. But it's not. Finding bugs is actually harder than it seems. You usually have to go out at night, shake a tree, lift a log. That's where bugs hide. They don't come at you. But I love insects. I think they're cool because they're full of so many varieties. And I've heard about an insect or a sort of a spider in Madagascar that's called a web-throwing spider. That's a picture of one there. And I had heard about it before I went to Madagascar, and I didn't fully believe it. Normally, spiders make a big web, and they wait for a fly to come by and hit that web, and they go and catch it. But this is actually a spider that carefully weaves a net, and it holds it in its legs, and it waits for that insect to fly past, and when it comes, it chucks it right at that insect, catches it, and reels them in, and then eats them. When I heard about that, it blew my mind, and I was doing a survey for some lemurs, and I bumped into this guy. Fortunately, I had my camera, snapped a couple photos. Sadly, I accidentally bumped him and threw the web. I felt terrible. He sat there stunned. He realized that it was like a whole day's work, kind of ruined. I felt bad for him, but I tried to curl it up now. So that was outrageous, but what's this? This is even crazier. This is a giraffe-necked weevil. Now, I had heard about these things again. I read some National Geographics. They showed me pictures of it, and I was like, that's it. I have to go to Madagascar. I have to see giraffe-necked weevils. Turns out they only live on one particular plant. That's all they like. and they have these ridiculous necks. Just like giraffes, they use those necks to fight between males, and they do that to access to females. And the interesting thing is that the one who wins usually has the longer neck. So in this case, sorry guys, size does matter. Now this one, I think, takes the cake for outrageous. Okay, you're thinking, what is it? Well, it looks just like a bunch of popcorn. This is a leaf that's about this big. Tiny, small little leaf. And these are the eggs of an insect. Okay, when I show you the next photo, you say, well, that's strange. Looks kind of like a moth or something. I actually posted this a few weeks ago asking people what they thought of it. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's a fungus, it's a moth, it's a this. No one guessed insect. They actually clump together, and they live stationary for the most part in the same spot for weeks. They actually secrete or poop a white wax, and it piles up on the ground in one spot. And lemurs and birds actually visit every single day. It's a stationary food source for them to come. It's like the 7-Eleven. They come every day, get some bug poop, and they eat it. Now, I wasn't brave enough. I didn't try it, but one of my colleagues did. And he said it was fine. It was a little bitter. And I was just amazed that he went and ate some insect poo. But he figured if lemurs can do it, why not him? So you've seen the eggs. You've seen it clumped up in bunches. This is what they look like. They look like Martians with wedding dresses that have been shredded. They're just outrageous. Now keep a look at that eye. You see the eye there? Look at the nose and the eye there. Now watch this. They hatch into a red leaf bug. Isn't that unbelievable? And here's a close-up of those two there. So you can see that yellow eye, go back again. It's the same animal. But now flies away, finds a mate, and does this whole thing over again. Depending on where you are in the country, they can be green, they can be pink, they can be orange, and they can be deep red. So they're quite interesting. Leaf-flapped insects. I'd never heard of them until I bumped into them in the forest. Madagascar is full of gorgeous geckos. There's over 60 species of geckos, including the day gecko and leaf-tailed gecko, which are more famous in Madagascar. I've got a quick video clip I want to show you of sort of past Travis visiting Madagascar and finding one of these just from this last trip that I did when I came back in December. So let's watch that now, see what past Travis has to say.
Here, spot the leaf-tailed gecko.
Start that over so you can hear it.
We're continuing in Mitsuji National Park. Pierre spotted the leaf-tailed gecko. It's one of the hardest species to find in Madagascar. It took me almost 10 minutes before I saw it. It's an amazing creature, perfectly blends in with its surroundings. It's one of the most cryptic animals in the entire country, one of the most cryptic animals in the world. And it's one of the neat things that you can come see when you visit Madagascar. It's no wonder they call it the 8th continent, the wonder of the world.
So they're incredible. Now, if you're lucky, you can find one on a leaf like this. But the one that he had that he found me, Pierre was the guy that took me out, he pointed to the tree and says, right there. Now, he's standing like this far from it. And I'm like, where? Where is that thing? So I spent 10 minutes looking up and down this tree, and then finally I saw it. I felt a bit stupid. But they're incredible. Every time I see one, they just camouflage so well. And they have this wonderful flange that just blends in with the bark. This one's not doing so well. He was easy to spot. This one's called a Satanic leaf-tailed gecko. It's aptly named because it has these beautiful horns that come above its eyes. And it's not trying to blend in with the bark. It doesn't look like it here because my flash is shining on it. But this one took me 10 minutes to find as well because it acts like a dead leaf. So it just sits there and sort of blows in the wind a little. And it's just an incredible species to find. Masters of camouflage. But there's other geckos, like this tiny little gecko. That's my finger. So you can imagine how small that guy is. He's really, really small. Madagascar is full of small things that are interesting. You might have seen this from the Gecko commercials. This is a day gecko from Madagascar. They're beautiful species. They occur in other areas, but the ones found in Madagascar are only found in Madagascar. And again, there's more species of these than anywhere else in the world, and they're only found, these ones are only found in Madagascar. Moving on to some charismatic chameleons. There's 150 species of chameleons in Madagascar, and only 300 in the world. So half of them are found in Madagascar. And again, of course, this is the same theme. They're only found in Madagascar. So these 150 are only found there. So if they disappear from there, you can't, like I say, go to the next island or go to Africa or Asia to find them. But what's really interesting about them, they have the largest chameleon. They also have the smallest chameleon in the world. The smallest chameleon actually happens to be the smallest lizard in the world as well. So here's two examples of it here. This is the one that I found when I was walking through the forest with one of the guys in the central area. And it's about this big. It's about the size of my finger. It's a Bruchisia species. They call it the dwarf chameleon. This is the micro chameleon they just discovered about a year ago. It fits on a match head. You could put it on my thumbnail. You could probably put 5 of them side by side on my thumbnail. That's how small it is. And of course, we only found it recently because it's so darn small. They just never saw them. And they also live on leaves or under leaves on the ground. So you can imagine finding these things is difficult. And the way they do it, they put pit traps, and they checked the pit trap one day and said, wow, when this tiny little things are in there, it's actually a chameleon. They were able to discover a new species. But they have the largest chameleon in the world. When it gets angry and puffs himself up, it can be about the size of an American football. So they can get quite large. Here's a Parsons chameleon with a beautiful white on his eye. This one was just on the side of the road. They're quite easy to find, actually. You would think chameleons would be hard to see. But once you recognize the signature of what a chameleon looks like at night, they're just easy to find. You can find them anywhere. So this is one that I found when I was doing my research. This is a Rhinoceros chameleon. And you know with that big schnoz, he's getting all the ladies.